Today, a bankruptcy judge approves Voyager's billion-dollar restructuring plan. Silvergate reportedly meets with the FDIC to find a way out of its financial woes. And Wu of Ava Labs discusses a new partnership focused on bringing Web3 gaming mainstream. Welcome to CNBC's Crypto World. I'm Tanea McKeel. Major cryptocurrencies are slightly higher today, with Bitcoin trading around $22,000 and Ether at $1,560 this morning. One crypto token that's in the red, Solana. It fell by more than 4%. Broadly, though, crypto investors seem to be shrugging off comments from Fed Chair Powell, who was on Capitol Hill once again this morning, saying that interest rates could climb higher than the central bank originally anticipated. Okay, let's talk about the top stories. First, a U.S. bankruptcy judge just approved Binance US's plan to buy Voyager Digital. The $1.3 billion deal lets Voyager sell off its assets and transfer its customers over to the U.S. arm of Binance. The deal also faced pushback from the SEC, who warned that Binance US was potentially offering an unregistered security and that there's a lack of clarity over how much access the exchange would have to customer data. The agency also questioned whether the deal would prevent probes and investigations into the company. Despite the objection, Judge Michael Wiles called the SEC's claims vague and approved the deal anyway. The restructuring plan isn't final, though, according to Reuters. It still faces a review by Voyager's financial advisors, and the U.S. Committee on Foreign Investment is also investigating national security concerns around a foreign investment into Voyager. Next, Grayscale CEO Michael Sonnenschein joined CNBC's Squawk Box this morning and faced tough questions on the firm's GBTC Bitcoin Trust. Namely, criticism around the company's sky-high fees, even as the trust trades at a huge discount and investors have no way to redeem their holdings. Grayscale was recently sued by FTX debtors who say their money would be worth way more without those fees and with some sort of redemption mechanism. At the same time, the company also took the SEC to court just yesterday over the agency's denial of a spot Bitcoin ETF. Grayscale argues that fund could be the solution to its lack of redemption mechanism.
If you had reduced your fees and stopped, and it was to say that you weren't even allowed, that it violated the trust agreement with FTX, and the FTX debtor shares would be worth 90% more than the current value if you hadn't violated the provisions of the trust.
Our fees have been consistent throughout time, right? And so these are things that are disclosed to every investor.
High for people who can't get their whose money is just sitting there. That's why it still trades at a 42% discount to net asset value. That's a 1 month low. It's down from 47%, but that is a shocking number. And the idea that you guys keep charging fees for that. I know you say your legal fees are high, and the only reason you've made these arguments is because the lawyers are so good. You're paying top dollar for them, but you got to be kidding me. Well, how do you explain that and argue that away?
Well, so I think last time I was here, we talked about fees as well. Yeah. I said it then, I'll say it again today. We are committed to lowering our fees when GBTC converts to an ETF.
Yeah, but that's like waiting for Godot at this point. Those people are still sitting there losing the money.
The fees have been consistent throughout time.
Consistently high.
Well, I think that you have to remember that the constructs that surround operating a vehicle like this is different than that of an equity-based product.
Now, that's what I don't get. This is I appreciate your coming on and talking about this.
Sure.
But the fee structure is a crazy situation for investors who got in with you and believed you from the beginning.
Believed that they were getting exposure to Bitcoin through a regulated wrapper that went to the SEC, registered, became an SEC reporting company.
At a 42% discount to net asset value.
Well, for a lot of investors, that's actually presented them with an interesting opportunity, right? If GBTC converts to an ETF, they'll have the ability to actually see that arbitrage take place. Well, so you're not. So does that mean you're not constructive on the oral arguments?
And finally, Silvergate is reportedly in talks with the FDIC to find a way to save the bank. Bloomberg reports that the company is working with officials to avoid a shutdown, with one option involving funding from crypto investors. Bloomberg also reported that examiners from the FDIC were instructed to head to Silvergate's offices by the Federal Reserve. But according to the report, sources said the bank could still resolve its financial troubles without regulator intervention. We reached out to the FDIC, which pointed us to the Fed, but as of noon Eastern, we hadn't heard back from them. All right, sticking with Silvergate for our main story, Crypto World's Talia Kaplan spoke with Wu, the president of Ava Labs, the company behind the Avalanche blockchain. They discussed the ramifications of the crypto-focused bank discontinuing its Silvergate exchange network, and he also weighs in on the future of Web3 and a new partnership geared toward revolutionizing the gaming industry.
Last week, Silvergate disclosed in a filing its ability to operate was a concern and said it sold additional debt at a loss. Silvergate warned more losses mean the bank could be less than well capitalized. After that warning, crypto heavyweights, including Coinbase and Galaxy Digital, dropped Silvergate as their banking partner. Do you think Silvergate will be able to survive all of this? How do you see the situation unfolding?
Silvergate will survive. Even if it survives, it will provide less functionality for the crypto ecosystem. The main reason why Galaxy and Coinbase dropped them was because they've effectively turned off their Send network. And their Send network was what created a lot more liquidity for the crypto market, capital markets, because they were providing on and off ramps in large scale for institutions in the crypto capital markets. So they had probably poor risk management, is the best way to say it, and they didn't have enough reserves. And that's part of the reason why they have issues being a going concern entity in the space. This is troubling for the space because this just means that there are fewer ways for institutions in the US to get onto the on-ramps of crypto. And hopefully there will be replacements for Silvergate.
So Bloomberg reported yesterday, citing people familiar with the situation, that Silvergate is in talks with FDIC officials on ways to save the bank, and that examiners have been on the ground there since last week. But what will happen if Silvergate files for bankruptcy? It sounds like you're pretty optimistic that won't happen, but how do you think that could potentially impact the crypto industry?
Right. So even if they save the bank, it's probably going to function more like a traditional bank with just for fiat purposes. I am very worried that even regardless of whether it's bankruptcy or not, the functionality of providing crypto access, fiat into crypto, will be damaged significantly. It already has.
You already touched on this, but a couple of days after the Silvergate news broke, you tweeted that stable rails need to be established between crypto and the traditional banking system, arguing that that's the only way forward. Can you elaborate on that?
I think what's going to happen is a lot of these companies who invest in the space or operating companies that develop in the space that need fiat on-ramps and need access to the crypto capital markets will ultimately either move offshore or look to establish banking partnerships with non-US banks. And the more we do that, we push all the liquidity and push the crypto capital markets activity and push innovators outside the US. Other jurisdictions are becoming far more compliant, and in other words, they have more certainty around the laws of what crypto is, and therefore innovators, developers, and institutions that provide capital market funding will move to these geographies.
In November, Silvergate faced financial losses largely due to the collapse of client FTX and its sister hedge fund Alameda. Last time we spoke was on the same day FTX filed for bankruptcy and Sam Bankman-Fried stepped down as CEO of the company. At the time, you said the trust in the asset class was significantly damaged, but the trust in the technology is still there. Now, here we are 4 months later. What do you think has changed since that collapse?
That statement is correct. If you separate the capital markets of crypto from the blockchain technology, there continues to be development in the space where traditional asset managers, traditional, call it TradFi people, are trying to figure out how to use the blockchain technology to streamline costs, better data management, and access new ways of revenue streams. And that's also happening in other areas, not just in finance, but also with consumer brands as well. However, the asset class as the capital markets and the intermediaries involved, these are the people who are either the on-ramps for fiat or people who custody, or companies, I should say, that custody assets for people. They've had either two main problems. One is either they were bad actors leading to fraud, or they were poor actors, meaning they did not account for the volatility or the risk management properly of the space, and therefore they're in a situation where, in Silvergate's situation, where they may be a going concern because they didn't allocate enough for the riskiness of the space.
So switching gears, Avalanche has been chosen as the exclusive blockchain partner for big names in gaming, TSM and Blitz. The goal, I understand, is to bring Web3 gaming mainstream. So what made you want to get involved in something like this, and how will you be able to achieve the goal of revolutionizing the gaming industry?
That's right. This goes back to your earlier point. The blockchain technology continues to see use cases. And I think this is a very big and exciting announcement and partnership, because this is really the first major gaming franchise that is leveraging the blockchain technology to create better use cases and better benefits for users, as well as for gaming publishers going forward. They basically currently, TSM, for people who do not know, is a massive gaming brand in esports. They have 100 professional esports players, and they have over 200 million unique visitors on various forms watching, and amateur players that use their Blitz application for TSM to follow the 100 professional players and playing games such as like League of Legends, Fortnite, and many other games.
So how will this partnership work exactly? I understand Blitz will be built on an Avalanche subnet, which is custom blockchain technology designed to maximize speed, security, and scalability. But how long do you expect it will take to build, and when will people have access to this?
Right, so this will work. Blitz right now is an application that allows TSM followers, amateur players, and the TSM community to basically have analytics to follow the 100 great players, but also allows them to learn how to play better themselves, game up, as they call it in gaming. And it's got high engagement. There's 30 million users of Blitz in the centralized server and 8 million monthly active users. That's very high engagement. So this is a space where gamers are very engaged. Now, what's going to happen is they're going to create Blitz in an Avalanche blockchain as a service, or subnet, as you said. So suddenly these 8 million will have the ability to own their assets, custody their own assets, and then they will have the ability to basically have greater accessibility to different games, because using crypto as a method of on and off ramp in-game items will allow them to go from one place to another in what the Avalanche team is building, the core wallet, so they can switch from a closed loop system to another closed loop system relatively easily. There's going to be loyalty created in this application, as well as ultimately think of it as a fantasy sports. Suddenly the users in this will be able to create their own gameplay through a fantasy sports-like application.
Okay, that's all for Crypto World today, but we'll be back again tomorrow, so we'll see you then.